Hello and welcome to the Coach's Corner, brought to you by the Endurance Lab, where you can join us as we recap the week and answer your questions from the forum. My name is Jason Flores, one of your Endurance Lab coaches, and I am joined by our coaches Ian Murray, Mitch Dangerman, and our nutritional therapist Andrea Cullen. Good morning, glad to have the gang all back together. A little bit of a different schedule, kind of swapping things out around, but I think we've got some good shows for you, so I'm really excited to get started today. We're gonna start things off a little bit on the lighter side. Everyone's just kind of getting back and seeing each other. So, Andrea, I heard you had an interesting weekend, not only in the endurance world, but also some adventures. Is that right?
Shopping?
Yeah, shopping.
Yeah, so I'm always curious about what's out there and different types of foods, and I'll often go to the Polish store, and they have really good cottage cheese with fute puree that I get my athletes using. It's really good before training if you add it into rice as a carb protein mix. But this weekend we went to the Oriental store after our brunch and found this little package of rice with mixed beans that you use for breakfast. Do you ever use those,
Can
Jason?
you move it over to the middle? There it is.
There we go.
Rice with
Yeah.
mixed beans. Interesting. We have rice with everything, so
Yeah.
that kind of works. Yeah.
Yeah, so you just soak it for a couple of hours and then cook it, but it's got all the beans and rice, so it's going to be protein and complex carbs.
Are you sure that's not the Central American store?
Yeah. It's like a red beans and rice, right, Ian? Is that what you're thinking? Yeah.
Well, unless they're confused in there, but
The pilots
there's
and
definitely
the
no
P3s and
American
stuff, so.
written on here. And then there was this other thing that looked kind of scary. So dried sweet potatoes. You know the way you get dried bananas?
Yeah.
So they're like dried sweet potato sticks. They do have a little bit of added sugar, but if you're wanting to chow something really sweet down before when you need an energy boost really quickly as you get on the bike or something, that'd be kind of handy. And another thing that I resurrected because when I raced this weekend, my legs were kind of heavy afterwards, is magnesium oil.
Ooh. Yeah, I've never tried it. I had a couple athletes we had post, was it last season? They were asking about magnesium oil, and I don't know, I feel like it may be mixed. What is your experience with it?
Well, I guess the research is kind of mixed in. Does it absorb? I mean, the ultimate function of our skin is to act as a barrier. But then anecdotally, reports from people who use Epsom salt baths, which I also advocate, or magnesium oil are good. So it stings a lot because this one is magnesium chloride. It's sort of salty. So then you suddenly find all the cuts and bangs and scrapes that you picked up from your last training session.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
But this one also has aromatherapy oils in it, lavender and clary sage and bergamot to help with.
So at least you'll smell nice when you're done.
Yeah.
You'll be sticky but nice smelling. And
Well,
the other,
Actually,
Yeah.
Andrew, I use something like that. We have magnesium gel, and I put it on just on my feet and lower part of my calves at night, so I can help make sure it gets some of those the magnesium into the skin, because apparently it absorbs through the feet the best.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of
it's
people
true.
What does
do
the
it,
magnesium do for those who?
Well, one of the things we have a hard time eating enough magnesium. It's one of those electrolytes that's hard to get to, and you have to be careful about how you ingest it through pills.
Right.
So
I knew
yeah,
that.
well,
it's for cramping supposedly. I don't know.
yeah, so magnesium would be absolutely essential for the body. I think about 300 enzymes use magnesium, and generally we have a deficit with the in versus out, especially if we have stress, whether it's physical or mental. But some of the supplement forms can be good, like magnesium glycinate or magnesium taurate or citrate or malate or aspartate. So again, it's always quality, but I think the gels or oils can be good. Another helpful spot can be behind the knee, where the skin is very thin for absorption. But yeah, they say the feet, which is amazing because I was looking at my feet after running yesterday and I'm thinking, how the hell is this going to absorb? But it's good. I was using it because I find I get really, really wired up after events. And at 2 a.m. I was there putting my magnesium oil on my feet because I couldn't relax, and magnesium is a natural relaxant. So it's really, I should have used it earlier actually.
So I like to fill my bathtub up with magnesium gel, and I just get in it.
So is this does this gel fall in the same category as like embrocation, where like you should always wash your hand afterwards? Like
I would recommend washing your hands afterwards.
You don't want
Or
to touch any.
don't put a ton on.
Yeah, there you go. You don't want to touch any sensitive parts after application.
It's not as much as sensitive parts if you have any cuts, though. If
You
you have any
feel
cuts,
it.
it's like pouring salt water on the wound.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So I got to go order some magnesium gel now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What
so-
brands? What do we use that we like?
I have no idea.
Oh,
Whatever's
well,
5-star
this-
rated on Amazon.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, well, you need to be careful with Amazon and counterfeit, actually.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I would be looking at, so the supplement brand leaders, sort of the practitioner only brands,
Oh,
if
yeah,
they
yeah.
have a magnesium gel or oil, they're the ones you want to go for. This one is called Relax SOS Health. I know when I was working a lot under Charles Poliquin kind of crowd, he had an exceptional one, which could have been Designs for Health or as a brand. Might be worth checking whether they do one, because he often reformulated theirs, from what I believe.
You know, I had a really interesting talk with a rep from Nordic Naturals. You guys familiar with that name that makes omega-3 fish
Yeah.
oils? And he was talking about on the topic of counterfeit, that there's there are bottles that come and look exactly like theirs, labeled wise and everything. The difference is it comes in a count that they have never made. Like, let's say they make like 90, and like, I don't know, something like 180, but they come in like 60 and 120. And they have never made that size bottle ever, and it looks exactly like their bottles.
It's a shame.
Yeah,
And
it's a big problem.
It's nuts. That's nuts. All right. We're going to shift gears here. It's about a week old, and Ian's still buzzing from it, but he had a really, really fun race that he wanted to share his experience. And I'm going to try to practice this, the name of his race, but it was the American Zofingen Duathlon. Is that right, Ian?
That's close enough. That's close
It's
enough.
close
Yeah.
enough. All right. We'll definitely post a link to the race, and he's going to tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, and I've got actually a race report coming out here this week as well on it. That'll go into more detail, and there's a few interesting stories that have emerged since that I didn't know were stories until, well, discussions on Discord. So, no, first off, the thing with this race was, and you guys know, I had really no plan to race this year because of school and then heading out after that. So I actually thought this year would come and go with maybe just, a couple local 5Ks, a couple maybe local bike race, something like that. And the opportunity came up to race the Zofingen. The person who was racing it couldn't do it, and they offered up their slot to a military person for free. And the race director, agreed to that. And I waited for a couple days to see if any kind of junior guys wanted the slot, and nobody took it. So I said, all right, well, I'm stupid. I'll take the punishment. And so for those of you who don't know, this is a race that is pretty much regarded as one of the hardest duathlons in the world. It is the one I was doing is the middle distance. It's run, bike, run.
Oh.
But yeah, so a lot of transitions. And there's a short course and a long course as well. The short course is just run, bike, run. One lap of each, and the long course, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was 1 lap of run, 3 laps of bike, 2 laps of run, or 3 laps of run, something like that. So each run lap is 5 miles with about 830 feet of elevation gain. And then each bike lap is just over 28 miles, and it's about 3,030 or 3,050 feet of elevation gain. And right out of the gate, you start with a 1.6 mile climb. That's pretty steep. So it's right out of the gate, it's just getting punched in the face. And the run is all on trails and carriage roads, or fire break paths, whatever you want to call them. So all the uphill is on trails. And when we talk trails, I'm not talking like the cool, pretty trails where it's really nice and wide dirt and it's winding up. No, it's rocks and tree limbs, and you're like, I think this is a trail. I mean, because there's not a lot of brush right here, and you're just going straight up. And at one point, I was at 181 beats per minute doing 13-minute miles.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Straight up. And it was pretty brutal. But, I went into this with no expectations, really, and fairly low expectations because I'd been sick the week before and, just a cold. And then before that, I had 2 weeks of travel for work where I was in Ethiopia and London. And before that was just a significant amount of work that had to get done for school. So my training was okay, and I got 3 weeks of good solid training in there, but it was 3 weeks, but 3 weeks really of total good solid training, and everything else around it was mediocre at best.
Yeah.
And Jason actually had to weigh in at one point because I was feeling really good in my last training week, and I was like, should I do a little bit more? And he said no. So I backed off.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you that question because knowing that you're slightly undertrained, probably the most sensible thing you can do going into it is feel really fresh and have a strong mind from not doing extra. So is that what you did in the end, or did you squish stuff together?
Yeah, no. So what happened was, and this is the reason it became difficult and why I was looking at pushing a little extra, was my last significant training volume week was the week before Easter. And so then I had to travel for 2 weeks, and then I still had another week before race week. So, I mean, I kind of had this huge block where I had to get everything together. So where I knew I wasn't going to get a lot of training in. So it was one of those, I crammed a lot into those 3 weeks of build. I think I was like 880, 920, and 970 TSS for those 3 weeks. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was like minus a billion training stress
It
balance.
feels like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and then the next week in London, I had about 50 miles running that week. And then in Ethiopia, it was almost a complete rest week.
Yeah.
Okay.
You didn't train
So
with
that
the
rest
marathon
meeting.
folks there?
The marathon. No.
No, I did not.
It's visiting the
Unfortunately,
landfills. I feel like.
yeah, I was visiting landfills, man.
I feel like.
Yeah, no, it was in farms and
in
all kinds of other stuff, and an African
We're
Union.
not allowed to talk about that. But.
Yeah, but no, but it was just interesting. So I went in there and I was like, all right, we're gonna have fun at this race. I know it's gonna be hard. I'm gonna enjoy the suffering, and I'm gonna see what happens. And that's all I really had. And I did no research on anybody in the race, so I had no idea. I saw on Slow Twitch there's a lot of smack talk going on, and
Wow.
and so I was like, all right, well, I don't know any of these people, so we'll see how it goes. Race morning, and it was great actually because it was about 45 minutes north of where I went to college. So I got to bring my wife to go see where I went to school.
Nice.
And meet a couple friends of mine that I hadn't seen in 20 years. So that was great. And race morning comes up, and it's absolutely beautiful park. It's a nice day. It's 60 degrees on race morning for about 12 minutes.
Oh.
And then it went up. But so we started off on the run. It had been raining quite a bit in New York, and the run was just like inside the first half mile was 3 just muck sections. And as I'm running, I get to the first one, I come along the second one, and a dude loses his shoe in the mud. And I was like, yeah, it's because he went in and his foot pops out. And I'm like, oh, man, that really sucks. Guess what happened on section number 3?
You lost your shoe.
I lost a shoe. And so at this point, I'm in second place. I'm running right behind the guy. No, we're just starting out, but I'm like running right behind the guy. And I just fell out. I could feel it. And I was like, I need to not step down with my right foot into the mud.
Hey.
So I went back, grabbed my shoe. And I was like, well, I guess I have muddy shoes inside and out now. Put the shoe back on. And started running, and we hit the hill and we actually rolled the first hill at 6:45 until we went real steep.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I made the first. It was like 5.1 miles per the lap, and I did it in 37 and change, which is about what I was looking for. So I wasn't hammering. I pushed the downhills, but I took the uphills fairly conservative because it would have destroyed me otherwise. But on the downhills, on the carriage roads, which if you know what a carriage road is or a fire break road, it's basically a gravel road. That's big for a little for ATV or a pickup truck. And I was hitting those at about 555, 605, somewhere around there. But downhill, so and not super steep. And it was hill 1, hill 2, pretty much back to back, and then a gap between hill 2 and 3, and then a gap between 3 and 4. So, so you had a little bit of time to recover after the first 2 big climbs. So, all right, boom, get on the bike. I'm in third place because my shoe incident cost me that position, which is fine. But I'm still in my zone. I got my power plan to go. Get out on the bike, and I put a 11 by 32 on the back of my bike. So I had a solid plate. And so it was great. So I was just spinning all the way up.
Yep.
No problem. And I lost a little bit of time to the second place on the climb, but I was really, really comfortable. And then I hit about 50 miles an hour on the descent.
Wow.
Well, this was the second time I'd done the descent. I'd done it the day prior.
Oh, okay.
Training run, and it's pretty hairy. You can go really fast, and then all of a sudden it's a series of 2 or 3 switchbacks.
Oh.
So you got to be on the brakes when you need to be on the brakes, and you have to be off the brakes when you can be off the brakes. But so all right, cool. So we get down there, go through, and we're flying along, hit the next climb, which is 8 miles. And that's not super steep, just long. And it goes up, and you come down a little bit, and you come back up, and you come down a little bit. And so it was pretty nice. It was just a long, steady slog up the hill, and I probably hit 35, 40 miles an hour on the downhill. That one, it was sweepers, but it wasn't very steep. Come back around, come off the bike, feeling pretty good. And at that point, though, I got passed on the climb by another guy, but he was working. He was working, and he was bigger than I am, skinny but bigger than I am. But you could tell the dude was working. But he killed himself to get to mile 15 on the bike.
Yeah.
I had pulling him back as we were coming into transition just by being steady, because we had another one mile and a half climb on the way back into transition.
Oh. So any banter at all while you're out there, or was it too hard of an effort to even think about it?
Between us, we were so spaced out. Honestly, if you look at the results, you can see by lap 1, there was just
spread out. Yeah,
everyone was spread out. And then I think that first climb right away, there's a lot of people who suffered on that first climb right away. So that spread things out quite a bit. There was the most banter I actually had was from 2 random dudes who were out there cycling on lap 2. And they're just random people out training, not part of the race. But yeah, so get on lap 2 in the run, and I'm like, all right, well, the guy who was ahead of me in third now, I catch him. So contrary to what I normally do, actually in transition, I rolled out, I stopped and hit the bathroom in the porta potty, because I was like, all right, I got a ton of time in 5th place. I want to be comfortable out here. I still got a whole nother bike and another run leg after this, so I'm not going to pee myself yet. And it wasn't too hot in the porta potty, so I was like, all right, and it's on the way. So all right, cool, stop. I was taking my time, trying to be good about this, because when I looked at the guy leave transition, I said, he's not doing so well. And so I'd stop real quick, bathroom break, and I get going. I make it through my mud puddles without losing any shoes, because at this point, there's
shoes sticking out
on the side. So I'm like halfway, half stepping through and half footing through these puddles on the side, trying to get through. So I'm catching up to him, doing real well. First climb, I could just see him, and I was like, oh, yeah, Daddy's gonna eat. And so I waited. I pulled him back, but I didn't make the catch. I didn't make the junction with him on purpose until we hit coming over the top, cresting that first hill. And as I rolled up on him, I was like, "Hey, man, that was a really good bike split. How you doing?" He's like, "Man, I don't know. That was hard. I don't know about this run. I'm not a strong runner." I was like, "Well, man, you don't want to blow your legs out on the second run. We still got another bike and run to do." And he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be hard." I was like, "Yeah, well." And so I stayed with him all the way to the second climb, and then but I kept lifting the pace a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
On him as soon as he told me he was hurting, like I just go from a 655 to a 650 to a 648 to a 640. So I just kept lifting, so he couldn't recover on the downhills. And all the time I kept chatting with him because I wanted him to stay right on my hip. And then we hit the uphill, and it was the same thing. So I moved in front of him because it's more or less single track. And I started talking to him over my shoulder as best as I could, trying to control my breathing, and kept pushing the pace a little bit until he just blew. He went from like, I'm good, to walking. See ya.
Wow.
So I buried him.
Were you using your stride at all?
Yeah, I was. So I was focusing completely on power for the most part. But I was looking at pace on the downhills because I knew I wanted to make him hurt. So I was watching power, and I knew I had a max that I wanted to hit. And on the climbs, I did a good job on lap 1 and 2 in the climbs of sticking to my power that I wanted to hit on it. Nice. Not so much on lap 3, but we'll get there.
Oh, go ahead, Andrea.
I was just going to ask while I'm listening to all of this. Did you ultimately pace off power and let that override heart rate or perception or breathing, or what way did you do it? Because obviously with this, you can really push into the red, and you need to get that recovery before you go into the next one. And for me personally, I go off my breathing. So you stuck with the power numbers.
Yeah, I stuck with power because honestly, especially that first lap on the run, and even the second lap going up the hills, I mean, the only way I was going to go off my breathing was I'm breathing really, 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 really fast, or I'm breathing really, really fast. I mean, it's just like because you had to get up and over them, and that's where you can make a ton of time.
Yeah.
And I knew I could run it down. I can run downhills really well, and because I practiced it, and it's something that you have to learn how to do to not beat your legs up. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you that the important part for me was when someone was in sight of me, I had to be running on the hill, even if I was not going very fast. Their visual of me running up the hill hurt them. If they were debating between walking and running, because if I would have walked, it said he's tired.
Right.
And so this was somewhat psychological for me, that if I was in sight of somebody, if they were behind me, I needed to put the running form out there, even if it was no faster than walking. But I followed the power. I didn't look at the heart rate at all, honestly, because at that point I was getting hot too. So
what do powers, for those unfamiliar with running power, what are those numbers like? Because like on a bike, FTPs 250, 300, stuff, numbers like that. Are we talking hundreds of numbers? What kind of wattages are you looking
so
at?
my running FTP is probably about 10% higher number than my bike FTP is.
Okay.
So it's roughly similar. Now, the thing with Stride is it's not a direct pressure or direct force power meter. It's algorithmic based on accelerometers that are in the little chip thing. But I mean, whether I'm actually generating that power or not, I don't know. But it seems consistent.
Yes, that's what you need.
That's the key,
That's
right?
the key.
Consistency.
So it's not like an R1.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's what I did, Andrew, and that really helped quite a bit because obviously running hills you can't do pacing. There's no pacing as far as your minutes per mile goes, and heart rate, because it was, I mean, if I control my power, my heart rate will stay where I need it to be usually. Until it starts getting hot and I'm dehydrated. But at that point, then I'm either at the end where I'm burying it anyways, or I'm not, and then I'll have to slow down.
I'm going to have to steal Garen's Stride, because I'd be quite curious about all that. Because ultimately in a race, I try not to be focused on my watch too much, and I know what it all feels like. And I think it's a limiter for me to see what it is rather than... So I just turn off. But I would be interested in the powers, actually, because even yesterday's race was very hilly. And you can't get too much in the red, but you need to get in the red a bit. I suppose that's the art of using the data to know what it feels like.
Yeah. And that is. And so I had a good idea. Like when I was running up the hills hard in lap 1, I wasn't watching my power numbers so much as I would look down periodically to make sure I wasn't, because when I could feel I was going too hard, I'd do a quick look down and go, oh yeah, I'm right. Yep. Going too hard. Time to back off. And so that's what I was doing with that. But yeah. So lap 2 ended up really well. I pulled back. I was now in 3rd place. I pulled back a little time on 2nd place, but they were so far up the road, 1st and 2nd. I wasn't too worried about them. I was just doing my own thing because at this point, I'm relying on my training, doing my thing. I get on the bike, boom, head out again. But I've told myself that I'm going to be conservative on this first climb again, and I am going to be not conservative on the descent. I'm going to go full gas. And I mean, I know the descent now. I know when I have to brake. I know where the critical holes are. I am not going to be in the position that a car is even able to pass me. I'm going full gas. And I get up and over, shift it into big gear, and I start hammering down, right? And I got into my super tuck position, where I knew I could go, and I hit 53 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I think, where my terminal velocity was for this course, just because of sheer weight. Yeah. Ended up, I had the eighth fastest descent of the day.
And what bike were you on?
I was on my Premier Tactical.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
My TT bike. Yeah. Awesome. And it, let me tell you, it handled like a dream at 50 miles an hour. There was no wobble. There was no nothing. Yeah. It was great. But yeah, so then I just kind of went around, and I had a plan to keep my second lap power profile a little bit lower, and which was good, because I would have just crushed myself. Made it up the climb again. The second climb went down. Everything's going great. But there was one small problem. When I came out of T2 or the second bike run, my bike had actually fallen over because of the wind. So when I rolled into the second run, I'd actually prep my bike real quick because you have to have your bottles ready to go. Mm-hmm. So instead of doing it after my second run, which I figured I'd be a little bit more mentally fried, I did it right away before I started my second run. Unfortunately, half of my aero bottle had dumped out.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucked. So I had to take some water on board, which I'd had my nutrition pretty well planned out. So I'd had Aero bottle and then a down tube bottle. So I had to tap into my down tube bottle earlier, and it was getting hot. So watered down my nutrition a little bit in the back half of the course. But then it was getting hot, and I was pushing. And so I'd planned to pick up the watts on that part because it's mostly slight downhill, flats, and some wind. So I figured, this is where I wanted to pick up the watts because I thought a lot of guys were using road bikes.
Yeah.
So I can make some time advantage up on the TT bike.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm rolling. And man, it's hot. I mean, I am baking. My body's like, what are you doing? Come on, dude. This was a bad call.
Yeah.
I mean, I was enjoying it, but I was tired. But more importantly, I hadn't had to dig that deep for that long. So mentally I was starting to go a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I was using all my concentration on the road because there were some bad sections of the road. And so we're about 24 miles in, and I look down and I see a low battery light indicator on my DI2.
Oh no!
On the front derailleur, right? Now, do any of you guys have DI2?
I do. I know
okay.
exactly what's going to happen.
Well, but just remember what I said, Jason.
Yeah.
Just remember what I just said.
Yeah.
I saw on my front derailleur a low battery LED.
Uh-huh.
A little symbol that says low battery.
Yeah.
That's going to come into play in a minute. So so at this point I said, hey, I got to climb again in a couple miles. So I got to stay inside climbing gears in case the battery dies, right? Because I don't want to be stuck in a gear that I can't climb on for a mile and a half. So I'm spinning at 130 RPMs doing our, a low cadence or a high cadence workout, just like, and I'm looking like an idiot. And I passed a couple people who were on long course, but they're like, why is this guy pedaling at a billion RPMs?
Yeah.
So I get there, I make it up the climb, I get in, and I start run 3, and
so is this the last leg? This
is the last leg,
Mm-hmm.
and actually on my bike leg, I'd been passed again by a guy on the climb, and he said something to me as he went by, but I didn't hear him because I was baked at that point, and so I again caught him just like the other guy. I was pulling him back as we come into the last transition,
mm-hmm.
and again I catch him I come up to him on the climb. And I start talking to him on the downhill. I'm like, God, I'm going to have to break this dude too. And my legs hurt. I'm tired. I don't want to do this. I mean, I don't want to have to push right now. And he says he's long course. I was like, yes. Because as I came into transition, one of the race directors, I think you're in second. I was like, but I know first way up there. I passed the guy on the bike. And I was like, this guy came by me. And I mean, maybe he's long course. I don't know. I couldn't do the math in my head at that point. I was like, so when I passed him, he says he's long course. And I was like, all right. And he goes, hey, have you seen this other guy? Mitch, the guy who ended up winning the long course. And I was like, no, man, there's no one.
This Mitch.
Nice job, Mitch. Nice job.
Yeah, not that Mitch.
We're going to talk about that race in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I keep going, and I just keep telling myself, they're closing in on you. They're closing in on you. But I walked all of the uphills because I was so just cooked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I couldn't. I ran some of it. The mantra I was using was, run when you can, walk when you must.
Mm-hmm.
And so every downhill I ran, and I was blazing at this point in the downhills, like 820s, 830 per mile. I mean, I was hammering, which that's slow, Jason.
Yes.
Super slow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
For Ian.
I lost a lot of time, but it turns out I actually gained time because everybody just hemorrhaged time.
Yeah.
Everybody was just blown up. Like there's 2 people who didn't walk on those uphills.
Wow.
Both were the race winners from the long course and the mid course. But yeah, so everyone was crushed. And I finished up. Great thing afterwards. They have great beer. Tom Gans and his crew there did a great thing, and they've decided they're going to carry on doing the military slots. So they're allowing people to donate military slots.
Yeah.
They're going to do just a handful each year, and there's a couple of us that I'm going to help them out, validating that the folks are either active duty or veterans. So they're going to keep trying to do that. So if there's any active duty or veterans out here that want to do the race, you can look into it, or people who want to donate a slot.
That sounds great.
You can look into it. And it's not an expensive race at all either. And it's really a great family type race. They had good beer afterwards, good barbecue. It's pet friendly. So a lot of people out there with their dogs. So of course my wife was happy.
They
This
look
was in New
beautiful.
York?
I was stalking the shots because they don't have a very good gallery on the website to show
Right.
just how beautiful it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, I saw that.
But I have a few questions because obviously this sounds like a really, really tactical race. But regarding
Oh, yeah.
your nutrition, so obviously your strength is going to be climbing, but also you've got to try and make it up on the descent. So I'm sure unless someone had a really strong nutrition plan, people must have just forgotten to drink or eat.
I'm
And
sure.
you were, it was about 5.5 hours you were out?
Yeah, 5.5 hours.
So you're not gonna get by missing
No.
nutrition. So what did you do?
I fueled on hate mostly.
Fears of my competitors.
No, so I ended up doing, my plan originally was going to be some Scratch Lab portables, but I just couldn't fit. I couldn't make them fit on my bike box, and I was wearing my tri-suit, which doesn't have outside pockets. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I did put a Cliff Bar in my little small bento box and some gels. But then I used Scratch Labs and EFS Pro for my because I need some calories more than Scratch could do, but I wanted to scratch in for the electrolyte. Yeah. So what I did was I would start the bike legs with my EFS in the Aero bottle, and then I'd refill with the Scratch and I made it a little more concentrated.
On the run course, was there water out there, or did you have to carry your own?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. Yeah, what's on the course? Yeah.
There was water and feed, but so on lap 1 I didn't carry anything, but on lap 2 I carried my own bottle with some EFS in there and a gel, just so I could have some calories in the liquids on the run, because I knew. So like, normally for me on a tri, I can just live off of whatever's on the course.
Yeah.
Maybe carry a gel and take some water in. A little different for Ironman, but for mid course, half and below, I can survive with whatever. But because I had to get back on the bike, fuel on the run, which is not what I normally like. I normally fuel on the run, but I don't like. I fuel to survive and maintain, not to be strong again on the bike.
Yes.
So I had to actually fuel as this would go. So I did more gels than I originally thought I was going to do, but I kind of started training that because I started thinking about it. Well, the problem you have with trying to actually eat is you're climbing. It's hard to. I could eat a little bit on the climbs, or especially big climb in the middle, because it wasn't too steep of a grade. So I was like, okay, that's where I'm gonna eat some Cliff Bar, at least on lap 1. But I knew by lap 2 it probably was gonna be hot. So at my stomach, I'm just not gonna eat well. Had I not gotten hot, I would eat more of that. So I figured, okay, I switched to strictly to gels and the liquid nutrition, because I knew my stomach could handle it. And I could put it down quick, because once you got off that climb, you're descending or you're on a flat or slight downhill. So you needed to be hammering. Anytime you came out of Aero, you're losing time in that position, because you had to make it up if you weren't a strong climber or if you were being a little bit conservative. And frankly, you had to carry momentum into the next climb, because there's a bunch of it. So I opted for the easiest nutrition to put down.
Yeah, makes sense.
And do you know what your numbers were? Roughly.
As far
calories and stuff?
Grams, carbs, or were you just going off of whatever I can get in?
Well, so I ate a gel at the beginning of, like, as soon as I got settled into the first climb, I ate a gel on the bike. And then I would eat, I ate half a Cliff Bar in the first lap on the climb up. And then, and then I ate a gel at the beginning of the second run, a gel right before I started lap 3 on the bike, or the second bike leg. And then, so I didn't wait to get out there. I ate it in transition. And then I took EFS Pro and Scratch only, and another gel out on the bike leg, the second bike leg. And I took another gel at the beginning of lap 3 of the run. So however many gels that was.
Yeah, you're gonna. I've lost track there.
It's about one. It's only about under 150 grams for 5 hours, though.
Well, no, like I said, I had basically two 16-ounce bottles of Scratch. With double, with a little bit extra in there, so like 2.5 scoops instead of 1.5 scoops.
Right.
And then
it's worth adding it up just to see what you did, and then know how you felt, and see do you need to up it or down it, and based on a hard race where you're going to have been in higher intensity, so pretty much carb guzzling. Like that race needs as much carbs in your liver and your muscles as possible. Yeah.
So
So how many pizzas did you have the night before?
I had pizza the night before, but so I had to drive back actually.
Oh, that's
after the
right.
race.
I remember
I had to
those.
drive all the way back to
That's like the
DC.
worst thing is doing
Yeah.
a race and then having to drive back. It seems like every big thing I do, I always have to drive back after it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
I
always
had
miserable.
Wendy's. I had Wendy's, but so there's something I want to touch on real quick. So I said something, Jason. I'm surprised you didn't pick it up because Justin picked up on it right away. On lap 2, when I said I looked down and I saw the low battery symbol, I'm like, there isn't one.
There's not a. Doesn't it blink a different color?
No.
No.
No, like I literally saw a little. It looked like
A battery.
I swore I
What
saw
was
like
it?
a
Oh,
low
but
battery.
you were just like hallucinating.
It's that little warning sticker that says "Don't open this. This is an electronic component."
Oh no!
So I was so fried mentally that what it was is when I saw that the first time, because that's always something you risk.
Yeah.
When I saw that, my brain said that's what it was. So it didn't matter how many times I looked at it after that. That's what it was going to see.
Now I want to see what.
Especially because it was low power on my brain at that point. It was all going to the legs. But yeah, so I could have sworn I saw it. So I was actually on Discord a couple days later, and I was telling Justin about it, and he's like, "Dude, there's nothing. There's nothing there." So I was like, "I'm gonna go look and take a picture of it and send it to you."
Yeah.
So I looked. I was like, "Yeah, there's not."
Yeah, I'm like looking on the wall here. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. So that tells you how hard I was going.
Yeah.
And when I finished the race, I was buried. I mean, I sat down. I mean, some of you guys have seen the picture. I'm just bent over.
Yeah.
And I was that way for a good 5 minutes. And then I sat there like this.
Oh, wow.
For about 15 and then I got into some cold water and I started kind of coming back to life. But I buried myself on that race.
That's
Well done,
race.
Really,
super
really
job.
great effort. Strava's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw that.
Yeah.
You know that actually, with all this, it kind of brings us into one of our articles of the week, which is essentially talking a little bit about how Ian was doing all kinds of travel before and kind of just a lot of life not aligning with his training. So we're talking about trying to balance that training stress life with that life stress life, and kind of how each of us deal with that differently. I mean, I remember hearing from Ian, like, he was in London and traveling, like you're talking like, 10 plus hours in planes, like, and in your mind knowing that you're missing workouts and this sort of thing. Like, what are some things that we do as coaches, or that we recommend to our athletes to try to keep this balance between this essentially life and training? I think that's open for conversation here.
I think there's 2 things that are really important in how we manage things. It's managing our time and managing our energy.
Yeah.
And if you want to preserve those, you got to be a little bit ruthless. Like, you need to manage your focus with social media. You need to cut out negative people. You need to limit drama in your head. The way we get to emotional extremes in our life, they're major energy zappers. The way we carry arguments on with us, you might spend half a run overanalyzing life, and then you get home and you overanalyze your session.
Yeah.
I think they're really big energy zappers. And then, so you got to limit what you are wasting out, and you got to optimize what you're putting in, which is nutrition. It's not just fuel, it's the substance of our bodies. It's creating the repair, it's creating how things work. Everything in our body is made from what we eat. It's incredible.
Fish and chips and beer, by the way, not really good making a race weight.
Yeah.
So, Ian, how did you manage your sleep with all that travel? Because I find that whenever I travel, sleep goes out the window.
So it was really hard. When I got to London, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was rough, but I immediately went out the day we got in, or the morning we got in, and went for a run, really easy run. So that helped keep me up, awake long enough, because we had an overnight flight, and I was fortunate enough to sit next to a dude who worked for a major financial institution, who had to do paperwork all night long and had his light on for most of the trip. So it was pretty awesome. So I didn't sleep as much as I would have liked. But so staying up there and then I went to bed early and got some sleep. I mean, that helped quite a bit from London. But I'll tell you, what really, it was hard in London to deal with the jet lag, but what really got me was the trip to Addis Ababa.
Yeah.
Because we were like 7,000 or 8,000 feet above sea level. for just our hotel.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it just was hard that was hard because it was an all night flight or all day flight. So we got up, I think we had to leave the hotel at 5:30 in the morning in London because it was the same day as London Marathon. So we had to get out before the road closures.
Yes.
And so all day at the airports and traveling, and I didn't sleep much on the airplane because I had a family in front of me. Their kids decided it was a romper room, not an airplane. So they were running all around, which was awesome, and screaming. That was great because I enjoy that so much. Yeah, so then we got to Addis, and it was just we got in late, and man, I can tell you that the altitude was rough. Being dehydrated, you just can't catch up if you're dehydrated there. And I tried to work out there a few times, and it was ugly. I mean, I had a couple times where I got on the treadmill or on the stationary bike there, and I was like, "Hey, let's put a little effort into this." And about 30 seconds into the effort, body was like, "We hate you."
So really that week you were back was almost like mandatory kind of recovery, right? I mean, if you had tried to push and added stress that week,
no way.
I mean, your body probably really needed that recovery.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up real quick. I mean, it was one of those that I had to sleep as much as possible.
Yep.
Honestly, it was absolutely brutal because of that. But I did also have to get some training in. So the week I got back on Saturday, and then I still rode on Sunday for an hour and 20. And then that week, from the week of the 6th, I put in about 680 TSS, including a double brick, which actually felt great. But the first couple of days were not too hard. I was fortunate that I had a number of days off from work because we were doing they weren't off. It was just that we were doing working on a group project, so I didn't have to be in the office sitting there. So that was nice. That's kind of how I managed it, Mitch. I was able to sleep a lot more, and I was going to bed like at 8:30.
Wow.
But that's the important thing. The other part, Andrea mentioned a little bit. But I think as you're doing this for your training and your racing, it's managing your expectations based on what your life is.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, had I gone in with this planning to race as well as I did, it wouldn't have gone as well.
Right.
Because I would have panicked a little bit when I got passed on a climb.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen. I mean, not on a climb like that.
Yeah.
I would have panicked and changed my race to catch that guy.
Right. And I think that's when some of the best races that people have, you have an expectation, or you've probably set yourself to something reasonable, and you let the race kind of evolve and come to you. And I think you have to have a mind open enough to be able to let it kind of come to you, and just know that you have that fitness to be able to use, but just kind of let the ride or the race to kind of come to you as time goes on through that event. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's some crazy run up to an actual pretty, I would say, somewhere between a B and an A race for this year at least, but then you only knew it 3 weeks before,
Yeah. Well, I'll real quick. Yeah, I had the monster weeks going into it. I'm trying to pull up real quick what it came out to be. It was insane. Like I got my TSB really, really high, or really low, whatever you want to call it. But I actually felt good, and I think it's because of all the training I've had over the last few years. Really, really, just kind of added up, and I was able to fall back on that to a certain extent. Like I peaked out at 100 CTL, 131 ATL, and minus 50 TSB.
Jeez.
Yeah. And
I remember the day you did that mental session. And then you were like, and I'm on another one, and I'm on another one. I'm like, oh my God, this training day that you're doing. Now, would you prescribe that for your athletes, or did you just know, I can do this, I should do this, and I need to do this?
So, I mean, I actually like to prescribe some of those harder days like that. So the double bricks and triple bricks, in my opinion, are great because it breaks it up what you're doing. It still gets you the time and the distance in that you need, but it's harder. Yeah. It is mentally harder. So if you can get through a double brick, so when I did my first Ironman, my coach had me do, it was a 40-mile ride, 10-mile run, 40-mile ride, 10-mile run, more or less, or 40 and 9, 40 and 9. And to this day, I say that's the training session that told me I can do Ironman Florida.
Huh.
Because I was tired afterwards, but I wasn't broken. And so because I hadn't done this kind of event or run, bike, run, I felt I needed to do something like that. And I didn't do the same distances. I did on the bike, but I didn't on the run. Because on the bike, I could do it inside and get the climbing in, but on the run, I've been DC, so it's flat. But I pushed the pace a little bit, and I did, 4-mile run, 4 miles for each leg. But I mean, I always want people to have some understanding of what they're going to face on race day, and know that they can get through it. Even if we don't do the same distance or intensities or time, but I always like my athletes to have some exposure to what they're doing, because the worst thing I think an athlete can have is when you're going into uncharted territory, which for the most part, most people doing their first Ironman at the, inside the last bit of that race, it's uncharted territory. I don't want them to think, wow, I've never done anything close to this.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the type of session that you, like an athlete and a coach, need to be really willing to shelve if that athlete has too much stress that week, or they're hard sessions on your body, and if you're in any way vulnerable, you can get sick after them. So you can get a huge benefit, or you can get ill. And I know I've done, I think it was 3 on and off. I think I did a double brick one day, and it just didn't line up right, and I ended up with a cold afterwards. So if your immune system isn't strong, you're going to dig yourself in a hole. But if you're in the right place, you're going to get massive benefit. And it's sort of, do you think there's an element of communication that's needed before that session? You see, the problem is our minds can mess it up as well, where we worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell my athletes, you need to suck it up.
Yeah.
It's time to be hard and just do this workout and shut up. Okay, maybe that's not what I would say, but I always try and plan them. So when we have key workouts like this, I'll try and talk to my athletes, before I plan this week out, or I'll let them know 2 weeks ahead of time. This is coming. 3 weeks ahead of time. This is coming. So start getting your life in order for that week.
Yeah, for sure.
Make sure your affairs are in order. Because you're going to be having
Yeah,
you're going to have a tough day. So yeah, I talk to them a little bit about it, and I talk them up, and I say, hey, look, this is going to be really hard. Just get through it. It's not important that if you feel like you're going to break, that's fine. Just push through it. It's not as important how far you're getting. It's, can you get through the workout? So don't worry about your pacing. Just worry about managing it. And this is where we test our nutrition. This is where we practice managing heat, if that's going to be a concern in the race. So I couch it in, this is a way to practice everything. So when we have to go into the race, we're not doing it for the first time and screwing it up the first time. If we screw it up here, that's fine. And then the other part too is, if you remember, I also did, as soon as I found out I was doing this race, I did a very similar workout.
Right.
So I actually did 3 multiple brick days. 2 double bricks and 1 triple brick. But I did that on purpose. The first day it was a disaster and it didn't go well, but that was okay. I said, okay, I need to tweak this, and this. The second time it went pretty well. And then the third time it was refined. And I was like, we can do this on race day. No problem.
There you go. All right. We're going to drop a bunch of these kind of tips that we have. And if you have a stressful life like Ian does, you'll know exactly what to do after this podcast. We're definitely going to drop a link into the American Zofingen Duathlon. And if you're interested in hearing more about it, there'll be a link there, as well as a link to Ian's Strava race. If you want to break down his race to see how you can beat him next year, it will all be there. I want to thank the coaches for jumping in today, and everybody listening in to the Coaches Corner. And if you like what you hear, we would love it if you share it with your friends. And if you have any questions and would be interested in us talking about it, send it over to coaches@endurancelab.fit. Don't forget, you could also follow us on Facebook at Endurance Lab, and on Instagram at The Endurance Lab. And don't forget, we are also at www.endurancelab.fit. We'll see everyone next episode. We should have a great one coming up for you. Everyone have a great day.
Bye.